Welcome into the Korelin Economics Report from San Francisco, California, and the 2006 Hard Assets Investment Conference. Paul Warren here, along with Al Korelin of A.B. Korelin and Associates.
You know, Paul, you and I have done some very, very interesting interviews over the last day and a half or so, but I've got to tell you, I feel truly honored right now because one of my heroes, how can a 60-year-old guy have a hero, Congressman? But one of my heroes, Congressman Ron Paul, who Jay Taylor, a frequent guest on our show, was kind enough to introduce us to 5 or 6 years ago, is here right now. We're chatting with him. Congressman, it's great to have you. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's real nice to be here.
Let's talk a little bit to begin with. Let's talk a little bit about your opinion about the future strength of the U.S. economy and how gold, other precious metals investments plays into that.
Well, I am pessimistic about the economy.
I think that's 4 people at this table.
I think we've been living on borrowed money and borrowed time, and I think there's still a lot of wealth, and a lot of people feel good about the economy, but I think they're deceiving themselves. I mean, the big discussion on the financial statement is it going to be a soft landing or a hard landing? And the optimists are saying, oh, no, it's already, the landing has occurred, and we're on our way back up.
Yeah.
No, I think there's so much malinvestment, misdirected investment, so much built-in monetary inflation that is going to translate into price inflation, a weak economy. I think it's somewhat like the 70s, but different. I think conditions are much worse than the 70s, so I expect the economy to weaken, but price inflation to come back, which means stagflation. And of course, the extreme of stagflation is a inflationary depression. And whether or not we'll reach that stage is yet to be determined, but I think we're in for some very, very serious times, which means that under those conditions, paper assets are always the worst kind of investment, and hard assets are the best investments. And it's been a long time when we've seen a full cycle of good times for hard assets, but I believe the last 5 years has been we've seen the beginning of that, and I think that's going to continue.
You know, I don't think there's any question about that, Congressman. I'm curious about one thing. You know, when Jay called Paul and I, again, as I said, 5 or 6 years ago, and said, Congressman Ron Paul is somebody you really have to meet, because Jay and I, up to that conversation, Jay and I talked a lot about politics, and the conclusion that we came to was that principles right now seem to be lacking to an extent back in Washington, D.C., or in the various state capitals, what have you. Politics are a very interesting animal right now. You've got some principles, though. You know, you were, as I recall, before you got involved in politics, you were a pretty successful pediatrician. Developed hundreds of babies, if I'm not mistaken.
Obstetrician, and delivered 4,000 babies. So I was very, very busy and enjoyed it too. Matter of fact, getting into politics was sort of a lark. I didn't really expect to be elected.
Well, you know, the thing that I find funny is a good obstetrician typically has a mansion in the city, a summer home any place they want, a couple of Cadillacs, a very, very nice, cushy life, so to speak. You opted to go the other way. You opted to make a difference in our country, attempt to make a difference. Why was that?
Well, for a couple reasons. One, I believed it was in my self-interest because I placed the value of liberty above more goods, and I thought it was worthwhile for my kids. So it isn't selfless giving. It's seen in a bit of self-interest. I also enjoy it because I enjoy discussing ideas, and to have meetings and dinners and associations with like-minded people. It's to me more fun, even more fun than playing golf. But
there
of course,
you go. Well, no, I'm not sure about that, but okay.
If you get to play golf with like-minded people, then you really have fun.
Yeah.
So, or fishing or something like that. I just never took that up very well. I do play a little bit of golf, but no, I think it should be fun, and it should be for a purpose. And to me, it's been rather easy. A lot of people ask, well, how can you do that? How can you stand up against what they're doing in Washington and you stick to it? Matter of fact, it would be very difficult for me to do it the other way. If you said, well, on this occasion, we want you reelected, so please bend a little bit and be practical here and don't vote this way because it's not that important. You know, it's just one vote. That would, you know, it's just that my makeup is such that I wouldn't be able to do that.
But when you come down to the real foundation of the United States, that's not what it's all about. I mean, our country got to be where it was, and I'd have to say where it is today, because of the principles that we had. I see those principles kind of being, as you say, bent a little bit right now for self-interest. What are your comments on that?
Well, I think what has happened is that we've lost respect for the rule of law. We have a good Constitution, and it's very important. We've abused it, but it's really the principle of the rule of law that we should protect. And since we, as a people, have been very fortunate, though imperfect, the Constitution has provided a lot for our families previously, because we have become very wealthy and we've enjoyed a tremendous amount of freedoms. But it's the rule of law, and fortunately following the rule of law, the Constitution has been beneficial. But now we lack respect for the rule of law, and we don't follow the Constitution, and that's how we've gotten ourselves into such trouble.
That is the truth. Yeah, that's the truth, Paul.
Congressman, I want to ask you something that I think goes to the heart of what everybody's dissatisfaction with politics is right now. We elect people and we send them to Washington or our state capitals or wherever based on what they say they want to do or what their principles are. They get there and they become too pragmatic. They don't compromise when we wish they would, and they compromise on things that we feel are principles that should not be compromised. You have made a great example for people by, in some cases, taking stands that are opposed by most people in your district, and yet those same people vote to re-elect you. Why don't more elected officials take the example from you and other people like you, that if they hold to their principles, even if it's one I don't particularly agree with, that makes them more electable? I mean, you just went through redistricting in Texas, and so you're in a new district that you've never had before, and still won 61% of the vote in a year when Republicans got hammered.
Well, I guess you'll have to ask those others, why they don't do it. I don't know. But they believe they can't be reelected. And, of course, my goal has been to try to set an example where I can show that you can stick to those principles and get reelected. And so far, so good. We've been able to do that. And it is true. It isn't always easy. For instance, prior to the district I have now, it was 90% agriculture. I had 21 counties, and it was essentially all farmers. But I never voted for farm subsidies.
And you still got reelected.
And got reelected.
How do you explain that?
By being upfront with them.
Yeah.
And the truth is that they haven't benefited that much by subsidies. I said, well, if the subsidies have helped you, and we've had them for 70 years, why aren't you all rich? And the family farmer's still struggling. I said, all the funds are going to the corporate farmers.
Exactly.
And then I play on their true beliefs. Property rights, inheritance taxes, federal regulators coming on their property, and they say, oh, that's right, Second Amendment, Texas farmers. So they say, they all of a sudden found out that they agreed with me on a lot of issues, but it's the organizations, whether it's the AMA in medicine that never really was a supporter of mine,
right,
or whether it's the farm unions. They don't support the small farmers. They become politicized. They become part of the system. And that's what a lot of politicians don't realize. They see, the farmers organization doesn't support this bill, so I have to vote for it, or they'll be after me. And I think they sometimes are just lazy. They don't want to go home and explain it, and tell the people why they've done such a thing, certain things.
One of the interesting things that's happening in this conversation right now is a fellow who I have known, as I said, for a long time, who I've never pictured this gentleman as being a wallflower, as Jay Taylor. And Jay hasn't said a word yet. Jay, what do you have to say to your buddy here?
Well, I guess I would like to ask the congressman whether he thinks there's going to be any policy shift on the monetary front. Congressman Paul is on the House Finance Committee, I guess it is, with the new Fed chairman. I'd just like to get his remarks if he thinks it's going to make any difference, or if there will be, if Mr. Bernanke may be more inflationary than Mr. Greenspan, even, who was a great inflationist.
Yeah, there probably won't be any significant change. The important thing to remember about monetary policy, it's more secretive than the CIA. I can find out more information from the CIA, which is very secretive, than I could from the Open Market Committee. I can't attend that or find out, and they don't allow us to know what's going